Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're diving into the world of the ISTP personality today.
The Virtuoso.
Yeah, or sometimes called the crafter.
Right.
You guys reached out because you want to understand ISTPs better. So we're going to look at some articles, some research, and really try to unpack what makes them tick.
Absolutely.
And why they're so good at just figuring things out.
Yeah, they're fascinating folks.
They really are.
Very practical, problem solving.
And hands-on.
Love hands-on work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right in.
Okay.
ISTP stands for?
Introverted.
Sensing.
In perceiving.
Perceiving. And now we're not talking about shyness with introverted.
No, it's not shyness.
It's more about how they recharge and where they get their energy from.
Yeah, how they refuel.
Yeah.
They get energy from being alone, reflecting, processing internally.
Right. It's like that alone time.
Yes.
It's very important.
Very important
for them.
Yeah.
And sensing
is about their preference for concrete facts, tangible experiences over abstract theories.
They're in the here and now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They want to experience things firsthand, understand how things work on a practical level.
So you're not going to see them really daydreaming about hypothetical situations?
Yeah, really, no.
They're like, what's right in front of me?
Yeah.
How can I interact with it?
That's it.
Correctly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, they're drawn to those tangible results, enjoy the process of creating or fixing something with their own hands.
Yeah.
And that ties in nicely with thinking, which is the third element. ISTPs, they rely on logic and objectivity to make decisions.
So they're not ruled by their emotions.
No, they're very much logic-driven.
Right.
They're constantly evaluating information, weighing pros and cons, looking for the most logical course of action.
Okay, so they're that calm in the storm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very calm, analytical.
They can just look at all the facts and be like, okay, what's the best way forward?
Yeah.
All right, so we've got introverted, sensing, thinking.
And perceiving.
So this is the last one.
Yes.
How does that play into their personality?
Perceiving relates to their lifestyle and how they approach the world.
Okay.
ISTPs are flexible, adaptable, spontaneous. They like to keep their options open rather than being tied down to rigid plans.
Right.
So they're masters of improvisation. They can adjust on the fly.
They go with the flow.
Roll with punches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking about someone who loves their independence.
Yes.
Thrives on action.
Absolutely.
Relies on logic. And embraces spontaneity.
Yes. That's a very good summary.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get this right.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, cool.
Those traits manifest in some fascinating ways.
Okay, I like that.
For instance, think about how their sensing preference, so that focus on the present, tangible details interacts with their thinking function.
Okay, how does that work?
Let's say there's a complicated piece of machinery and it malfunctions. The ISTP's sensing would allow them to immediately take in all this information through their senses, the sights, the sounds, even smells, to assess the situation, and then their thinking function would kick in, enabling them to analyze the data, break down the problem logically, and systematically troubleshoot until they find a solution.
So they're not just randomly tinkering around. They're
It's a very methodical process. Very methodical.
So they're looking for the why behind everything.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like they have this internal algorithm that's constantly running, processing information, seeking the most logical explanation.
That's cool.
And then you combine that with their perceiving nature, their willingness to experiment and adapt.
Yeah.
And you have someone who can really think outside the box.
And that makes them really good troubleshooters.
They're the best troubleshooter.
So if anything goes wrong.
You want an ISTP around.
Yeah.
You want an ISTP around.
Like a technical glitch or just a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
They're there.
They're there for it.
They're all right, let's figure this out.
Yeah. And they're not afraid of challenges.
Good.
In fact, they're often drawn to situations that require quick thinking, creative solutions.
Yeah. It's they look at a problem and they're like,
this is fun.
Yeah.
It's like a puzzle to be solved.
Yes.
And the more complex the puzzle, the more engaged they become.
That's a game.
Yeah, it's a game.
All right. So instead of getting stressed out, they're like, oh, a challenge.
Yeah.
Cool.
This is going to be fun.
Let's figure this out.
Put my skills to the test.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this brings us to another key aspect of the ISTP personality.
Okay.
Their independence.
All right, let's talk about that.
Okay.
We've
We've touched upon it a bit. Yeah, but how does their need for autonomy really shape their interactions and their decisions?
Yeah. So for ISTPs, independence isn't just a preference, it's a fundamental need. They value their freedom, their ability to make their own choices, explore the world on their own terms.
So they're not going to follow the crowd? Or just accept what other people tell them?
They need to figure it out themselves.
They're like, I need to understand this on my own.
Yeah. They are driven by those internal motivations.
Right.
A desire to understand the world through their own experiences.
Okay.
To live life authentically.
Yeah.
This can make them appear rebellious or unconventional.
Right.
But it's really about their deep-seated need to be true to themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this, independent streak.
Yes.
Does it show up in their relationships?
It shows up everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So, they're not going to be
clingy or demanding partners. They're not going to be comfortable in relationships that feel suffocating or restrictive.
Okay, so you're not going to see them texting their partner, every 5 minutes.
Not at all.
They're like,
give me my space. I need my space.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they need their own time to pursue their own interests? Tinker
in the workshop.
Yeah. Or just recharge on their own.
Yep.
But it's not that they don't care about their partner.
I don't think that at all.
It's just that they need that.
Freedom
to be themselves.
Yes.
So that they can then
fully show up
in the relationship.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's they need to feel grounded in their individuality before they can fully connect with another person.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And this need for independence ties into another fascinating aspect of the ISTP personality.
Okay.
Their action-oriented nature.
Okay, tell me more about that.
They are not the type to sit around and theorize.
Okay.
They're doers. Makers.
Yeah.
They want to experience the world firsthand, make a tangible impact.
So you're not going to see them spending hours debating philosophy. You're going to be out there building something.
Building, fixing, exploring.
Yeah. Exploring something new.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're drawn to hands-on experiences, whether it's tinkering with gadgets, building furniture, mastering a new skill.
So they want to create.
Yes.
They want to build.
Yeah.
And they want to kind of leave their mark.
Absolutely.
In a really tangible way.
Yes.
Okay.
And this brings us to another interesting aspect of the ISTP personality. Their reserved nature.
Okay, so we've talked about how they love action.
Yeah.
They love to tinker.
Yeah.
They love to explore. But they're also reserved.
Reserved, introspective.
Yeah. How do those two things coexist?
It's an interesting balance. While ISTPs are highly engaged with the world around them, they're also incredibly selective about who they let into their inner circle.
Okay.
They're not the type to just spill their guts to anyone.
Right.
Or engage in superficial small talk.
So they're not the life of the party.
Probably not.
Yeah.
They might be.
Yeah.
But it's not their natural inclination.
Right.
They're more content to observe, to listen, to process information internally.
Okay.
Yeah, and they open up to people that they trust and respect, people who share their interests and values.
So if you're one of those people...
You're special.
Yeah.
You're in the inner circle.
You've made it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's huge for an ISTP.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, too, given everything else we've talked about.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of these different nuances.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the ISTP subtypes.
Right.
Because we've talked about
the general characteristics, but there are some nuances within this personality type.
Right.
One common way to differentiate is by looking at assertive and turbulent subtypes.
Okay.
ISTPA and ISTPT.
So it's not just...
Yeah, it's not just those 4 letters.
Okay.
There's another layer.
Right. There's more to it.
More to it.
Okay.
Yeah. These subtypes relate to how individuals respond to stress, challenges, self-doubt.
Okay.
So the assertive ISTP or ISTPA tends to be more confident and self-assured. They're comfortable taking risks.
Okay.
Facing challenges head on.
Right.
And they don't get really bogged down by worry or anxiety.
So they're the cool, calm, and collected.
Cool, calm, collected.
Yeah.
That's it.
They just have it.
They got it handled.
Well, under control.
Yep.
Okay.
They radiate competence, composure, which is further amplified by their practical skills and problem-solving abilities.
Okay.
They trust their judgment and are often seen as natural leaders, especially in those situations that require quick thinking and decisive action.
Okay, so that's the ISTPA.
Yeah.
Now, what about the ISTPT?
The turbulent ISTP still shares those core characteristics, but they might experience more self-doubt and anxiety.
Yeah.
They're still capable and driven, but they might overthink things more, be more sensitive to criticism, and worry about making the wrong decision.
Even though they're perfectly capable. They're like, but what if?
Yeah, what if they have a heightened sense of self-awareness? They can be more sensitive to that external feedback.
Okay.
This can lead to perfectionistic tendencies.
Right.
The desire to constantly improve and refine their work.
Okay, so that's something to keep in mind if you're interacting with an ISTP.
Absolutely.
You know, that there are these variations. And you can't explain why someone's jumping into a project.
With complete confidence.
Another person's like,
wait a minute, hold on.
I need to think about this.
I need to plan.
Yeah.
So recognizing those nuances can lead to more effective communication and understanding.
Right.
It's a reminder that even within a shared personality type, there's a spectrum of how individuals approach the world and manage their emotions.
It's so fascinating.
It is.
It's so cool.
So cool.
Like these little variations can make such a big difference.
A huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the cognitive functions.
Okay.
A little bit more in depth.
All right.
Because we've already touched upon.
Introverted thinking, extroverted sensing.
Yeah.
But what other functions are at play here?
Yeah, tell me more about that.
So in addition to their dominant introverted thinking, T, and auxiliary extroverted sensing, C, ISTPs also have a tertiary function called introverted intuition. Often shortened to NI.
Right.
And an inferior function called extroverted feeling, or FE.
So what does that mean?
What does it mean in practice?
Yeah.
Well, introverted intuition is all about making connections, seeing patterns, and having those aha moments. Where seemingly disparate pieces of information suddenly click into place.
So even though they're very grounded in the present and the practical.
Yeah.
They still have this intuitive side.
They do.
Okay.
It's not their dominant mode of operating, but it's their adding depth, insight to their thinking.
Okay, so like, for example, let's say an ISTP is working on a mechanical problem.
Okay.
And suddenly they have a flash of insight about a potential solution, seemingly out of nowhere.
It just comes to them.
Yeah. Like their subconscious mind has been working on the problem in the background.
Yes.
And then it presents this fully formed insight.
Like boom.
Boom.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes them very...
innovative problem solvers.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have like a secret weapon.
They do.
They don't even realize they have.
But it's like helping them understand these complex systems.
Yeah.
In a very different way.
And come up with those creative solutions.
That's so cool.
It is cool.
All right. Now, you mentioned extroverted feeling.
Yes.
Which I feel like that's a little...
counterintuitive.
For a personality type that we said is so logical.
So logical and reserved.
Yeah.
So how does that fit into the ISTP profile?
How do they connect with the emotions of others?
So even though ISTPs might not express their emotions openly or be the most verbally affectionate, they do care about how their actions impact others.
Okay.
They might not be the first to offer a shoulder to cry on.
Right.
But they'll show their care through practical actions and gestures of support.
Okay, so instead of saying, I love you, they're going to fix your leaky faucet.
Exactly.
Or build you a bookshelf.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, their way of showing love and care is often more action-oriented than emotionally expressive.
Right.
And that's where their FE comes in.
Okay.
Even though it is their least developed function, their inferior function, they might have to work a little harder to express empathy, navigate emotionally charged situations.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they lack compassion or concern for others.
Yeah, so they might not always know what to say, but they're going to be there.
They're there.
To like help you in a practical way.
Yeah. They'd rather offer solutions and support than emotional platitudes.
Right. So it's recognizing that they don't all express love and care the same way.
That's it.
But for an ISTP, those practical acts of service are really...
that's their language.
Yeah.
That's how they show you they care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been so fascinating.
I know, right?
I feel like we've only just begun to scratch the surface.
Oh, we have.
Of the ISTP.
so much more to explore.
Yeah. But before we get into all that,
yeah.
I want to know more about how these ISTP traits play out in relationships.
That's a great segue.
Okay, cool. Let's do it.
All right, let's dive into the world of ISTP relationships.
Yes.
When we think about ISTPs in relationships, it's crucial to remember that autonomy for them isn't just a preference, it's a fundamental need.
Yeah, makes sense.
They value their freedom, their personal space.
Right.
And they really need partners who get that.
Yeah.
Understand and respect those boundaries.
That makes total sense, given everything we've talked about, like their independent nature.
Yeah.
Their action-oriented nature.
Absolutely.
They need to be able to like go out and do their own thing.
They need space.
And come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. They need room to breathe, pursue their own interests, have time for solo exploration and reflection.
It's not that they're being distant or uncaring.
No, not at all.
It's just that that's how they're
wired.
Yeah.
That's how they recharge.
Yeah. And I can see how that could be misconstrued.
Oh, for sure.
By partners who haven't quite grasped the intricacies of the ISTP personality. Or they're not.
They don't love me.
Yeah, they're not committed.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily true.
No, that's a common misconception.
Okay.
ISTPs can be deeply loyal and caring partners, but they just express their affection in ways that might differ from other personality types.
Okay.
They're not typically prone to grand romantic gestures or those effusive declarations of love.
Yeah.
Instead, they show it.
Yeah.
They demonstrate their love through actions, through practical support,
right.
and through their unwavering presence.
So it's less about the words and more about like just watching how they show up.
Exactly. Yes. They might fix something for their partner, help them with a challenging task, or simply be there to offer that practical support when it's needed.
Yeah.
Those acts of service, those quiet gestures, speak volumes for an ISTP.
So actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're just there to help you.
Always ready to roll up their sleeves, help out.
Okay.
And while they might not always be comfortable expressing their emotions verbally, they're often very attentive and responsive to their partner's needs.
Okay.
They observe and process.
Right.
And they genuinely try to understand their partner's perspective.
And that goes back to
like
the sensing and the thinking that we talked about?
Taking in information from their environment, processing it logically.
Okay, but are they then bad at emotional intelligence?
Not at all.
Or empathy?
It's more that their approach to emotions is less outwardly expressive.
Okay.
So while they might not always have the right words to articulate their feelings, their actions often demonstrate a deep understanding of their partner's needs.
So they just might not want to sit there and have a conversation.
Yeah, they don't like to dissect every feeling in detail.
They just say,
it is what it is. Yeah. Let's move on. So if you're a partner that really thrives on that, verbal reassurance and the emotional processing.
Yeah, you might need to have some open communication about these different styles.
So it's about understanding each other's.
Love languages.
Yeah, love languages and how those expressions might show up differently.
Absolutely. And that extends beyond romantic relationships.
Okay.
What about friendships?
Yeah, how does that work?
ISTPs are incredibly selective when it comes to their friendships.
Okay.
They don't need a huge social circle.
Right.
They prefer a few close friends with whom they share genuine connections, common interests, and a deep mutual respect.
Quality over quantity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're not interested in superficial connections or shallow conversations.
Right.
They seek out friendships that are meaningful based on shared experiences where they can truly be themselves.
Yeah. Without feeling the need to put on a facade.
So like if an ISTP invites you into their workshop.
That's huge.
To like tinker.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
You've earned their trust and respect.
You've made it to the inner circle.
They're letting you into their world, sharing something that they're passionate about.
Right.
And that is significant for an ISTP.
Well, yeah.
It speaks volumes about the value they place on that connection.
Okay, so we've got romantic relationships.
Yeah.
We've got friendships. Now, what about family?
Family.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
How do those dynamics play out?
It definitely does. Their independent nature, ISTPs, even within their families, still need that same sense of autonomy and individuality.
Yeah.
They might not always be the most emotionally demonstrative family members.
Okay.
But they're often deeply loyal and protective of those they love.
So they're not going to be the ones orchestrating the big family gatherings.
No, probably not.
But they're the ones behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes.
Like fixing the broken appliance. Yeah. Offering practical advice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're not doing it for recognition or praise.
They're just like...
They just want to help. That's their way of showing that they care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's shift gears a bit here.
Okay.
And talk about ISTPs in the workplace.
Okay.
Given their unique blend of characteristics.
Yes.
What kind of careers do you think they're best suited for?
They thrive in careers that allow them to use their hands, solve problems, and work independently.
So they need to be able to have a lot of autonomy.
Yes.
In the workplace.
They're often drawn to fields like engineering, mechanics, computer programming, skilled trades where they can combine those logical, practical problem-solving skills.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You're not going to see them stuck in a cubicle.
No.
Pushing papers.
No.
Like they need to be able to...
They need something.
Use their hands.
That challenges them intellectually.
Yeah.
That allows them to tinker and experiment, provides that sense of accomplishment through tangible results.
Yeah, I can totally see them as like a mechanic.
Oh, yeah.
Just like meticulously...
Taking apart an engine?
Yeah.
Diagnosing the issue?
Yeah, and then putting it back together.
Putting it all back together. Yeah. Or a software developer writing elegant code.
Yeah.
Building intricate systems that solve those complex problems.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What about entrepreneurship?
Oh, yeah.
Are they good at that?
They can be amazing entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Their independent spirit, that practicality, those problem-solving abilities make them natural innovators and creators.
So they might launch a business where they get to design and build furniture.
Absolutely.
Or develop an app.
Yeah.
Or even just like create a service that solves a problem.
That's it.
In their community.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, we're not just talking about traditional career paths.
Right. They're forging their own path.
They're making their own opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even within those more traditional settings, ISTPs are often drawn to roles that allow them a degree of autonomy and control over their work. They need a work environment that's flexible, results-oriented, that doesn't bog them down with unnecessary rules.
They don't like to be micromanaged.
No.
Yeah.
They need that freedom to experiment.
Right.
To think outside the box.
Yeah.
Try different approaches.
And to be trusted.
Absolutely.
To figure it out.
Yeah. They need to be trusted to use their skills and their judgment.
Right.
To find the best solutions, even if those solutions might not be conventional or expected.
So speaking of unconventional.
Yes.
I've read that ISTPs are sometimes drawn to more adventurous or even risky careers.
Absolutely.
Is that true?
That is true. Some ISTPs are definitely drawn to careers that provide a sense of excitement and challenge roles that require quick thinking and decisive action.
Okay, so like what?
Think firefighters, pilots, even those working in law enforcement or emergency response.
So those jobs that are...
Adrenaline pumping.
Yeah, and you have to be able to like think on your feet.
Yeah, got to stay calm under pressure.
Assess the situation.
Yeah.
And react.
React quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they excel in environments where others might crumble under pressure.
Yeah.
That's their jam.
So we've talked about all the positive aspects.
Yeah. Yes.
But like every personality type, there are also some challenges.
Of course.
So are there any specific areas where ISTPs might struggle?
One potential blind spot for ISTPs is their tendency to become emotionally detached or withdrawn, especially when dealing with stress or conflict.
Okay, so they might care, but they're just not showing it.
They have a hard time showing it.
Right.
And this can be challenging for partners, friends, family members who might misinterpret that withdrawal.
Right, they're like, oh, they don't care.
Yeah.
But that's not true.
No, it's not that they don't care.
It's just their way of coping.
It's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
It's a way to process their emotions internally before re-engaging with the world.
So they need that time.
To process.
Before they can come back and re-engage.
So patience and understanding are key in that situation.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other challenges that we should be aware of?
Another potential challenge is their impulsivity.
Okay.
ISTPs are often drawn to new experiences.
Right.
And they can be quick to act without fully considering the potential consequences.
So that's a double-edged sword?
Yeah.
Like on the one hand, it's like very spontaneous and adventurous.
Exciting.
But on the other hand, it could lead to some bad decisions, some hasty decisions, or actions they later regret.
So it's all about like harnessing that impulsivity.
Finding a balance.
In a positive way.
Yeah. Like trying new hobbies, exploring creative pursuits, while also learning to pause.
Right.
Consider those potential ramifications before making major decisions.
Yeah, it's like channel that energy.
Channel it.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And this brings us back to that adaptability we've been talking about.
They're always learning, adapting, refining their approach based on their experiences.
Right.
They're not afraid to make mistakes as long as they can learn from them and continue to grow.
Okay. So I think that's a great segue to something I've been looking forward to.
Okay. What's that?
Talking about famous ISTPs.
Ah, yes.
Because I feel like that's always fun.
It is fun.
To look at real life examples. And see how these traits manifest in the real world. So who are some famous people?
Okay, so one name that comes up frequently is Clint Eastwood.
Okay.
You know, his stoic, action-oriented, problem-solving characters often embody many classic ISTP traits.
He just has that presence.
He does.
Like that quiet intensity.
Yeah.
And he can like handle a gun.
Yeah, he's skilled.
Yeah, he's very skilled.
Yeah.
Okay, what about other people?
Steve Jobs.
Oh, yeah.
Often associated with the ISTP personality.
Okay.
That innovative thinking, hands-on approach, that drive to create practical and aesthetically pleasing products.
Yes.
Very much aligns with those core characteristics.
He wanted to create something tangible and impactful.
That's it.
Okay, cool.
And Amelia Earhart.
Oh, yeah.
The pioneering aviator.
She's awesome.
Adventurous spirit. Love of hands-on experiences. Unwavering determination.
Yes.
Break boundaries.
She really embodies that.
She does.
Like independent, action-oriented.
Spirit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, these are just a few examples.
Right.
And it's important to remember that personality typing is not an exact science.
Right. We can't definitively say
right.
that they are ISTPs.
Yeah. We don't know for sure.
Yeah. But it's fun to look at these patterns.
It is fun.
And see those connections.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to see how those traits can lead to like such different paths.
Such diverse paths.
And accomplishments.
Yeah. It underscores the point that even within a shared personality type, there's just an incredible range of individual expression.
Yeah. That's so cool.
It is cool.
We could talk about this forever.
I know, right?
But we're going to have to wrap it up here.
Okay.
So before we do,
I
want to leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So knowing everything we now know about ISTPs, their love of figuring things out, their hands-on approach,
and their desire to really make a difference. What kind of challenge do you think would really motivate an ISTP to like push their boundaries?
To push their boundaries.
And achieve something.
Achieve something remarkable.
Truly remarkable. Yeah.
What would spark their ingenuity, ignite their passion, and set those problem-solving skills ablaze?
What kind of problem would they look at and be like, I'm going to solve that.
Yeah. I'm going to tackle this.
Yeah.
I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
I love that question.
Yeah, I think it's a good one for our listeners to think about.
To ponder.
And before we go, I just want to thank Personality NFT for all their insights.
Their work has been instrumental.
It really has.
Yeah.
We'll put some links in the show notes so you guys can check them out.
Yeah.
And I want to say to our listeners, the next time you encounter someone who's quietly observing, tinkering with a gadget, or just like calmly tackling a problem, you might just be interacting
with an ISTP. Yeah.
So take a moment.
Appreciate them.
To appreciate them.
Their unique strength.
Their quiet brilliance.
Their unwavering commitment
Yeah.
to understanding and improving the world around them.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the ISTP.
We hope you've gained a newfound appreciation for this remarkable personality type.
Until next time.
Keep exploring, keep learning,
and keep diving deep
into the fascinating world of human personality.